Hey, Steve.
Todd, what's up, man?
And I hear you guys talking about beards just a couple seconds ago, and I feel left out.
Just go for it. It's easier. You don't have to shave. It's good.
That's actually, you have a pretty nice, well-groomed beard, man. It's got to be some work to it. It can't be just as easy as that.
I appreciate it, man. I just let it go. Just let it go. The simple life.
I've tried. It drives me crazy, man. I cannot get past that itching, stage, I guess, that you go through. And actually my kids, I've grown it out and my kids have said, like, hey, Dad, you look pretty good with a beard. And but I just can't, I don't know, man. I guess I could do it in the wintertime, with the summertime. Just like anything else, you just get used to it. So how have things been?
Good, man. Good. Things were, as you know, probably crazy in your neck of the woods as well. Just a lot of action, a lot of activity in the real estate world. But recently things have calmed down, which is good. We all needed a break,
It's calmed down. Yeah. And speaking with, other friends in the industry throughout the country, I don't know. Some say the ship sailed. I don't know. It's kind of, are we just experiencing more of a normal market, with going into fall and back to school, or is this frenzy really over? And then you see things like, of course, you've heard, as a real estate broker, you keep your thumb on the pulse. Zillow's big announcement. Who really knows what's behind that?
Yep. I just did a video on that yesterday. It's, they're losing money. That's as plain and simple as it can be. They're losing money and they're offloading a bunch of properties and they're going to take a loss on a lot of them. And, I think that's a telling sign in my estimation. I think that, like you said, the ship is turned. And I think that, I think it's going to be interesting times ahead. I'll just put it that way.
Yeah, definitely. Well, tonight I'm excited to kind of catch back up from our last conversation, talk about, Airbnbs, the VRBOs, and, really just investing in short-term rentals. I know you're an expert in that. And guys, whether you're moving cash out of the stock market, or realizing your money in the bank is becoming less valuable with inflation, or maybe just looking to subsidize your job, like a lot of other people trying to get in the real estate business. They want passive income. Tonight, we're going to talk about the difference between long-term and short-term rentals. And really Airbnb and, like I said, the VRBO, that's kind of a strategy that you can, kind of go with. Steve Daria is a friend of ours down in Florida. He's a real estate broker. He's invested in these short-term rentals himself. And if you want to learn more about Steve, check out our last podcast with him. You have to go back maybe a year ago, but he's a return contributor to us here on our Tuesday night podcast. I'm Todd Sachs. I'm a real estate broker here in Maryland. And we're small brokerage, but we serve residential and commercial clients. And whether you're selling, buying, renting, or landlording, we'd love to help you. And guys, if you're looking anywhere else in the country, we have an amazing broker network like Steve that we can point you in the right direction. So, Steve, welcome back.
Thanks for having me on the show, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So just, kind of give everybody the quick Steve Daria, just little info.
Yeah. Moved from Jersey in 99. I graduated high school, came out here for college, and ended up in Southwest Florida here. Set up a real estate brokerage back in 2006. We ended up selling majority share of our brokerage in 2018, have some great partners in on that. And been living over on the beach for the last 8 years and selling more beach properties, waterfront properties, more vacation style seasonal rental properties. And that's it. And have no intention of going back up north, shoveling snow or defrosting cars or any of that.
Buying a jacket just isn't on your to-do list right now.
Yeah, it's no longer part of my DNA.
That's awesome. So just kind of give an overview of the differences. I mean, you're an expert. You are an expert in short-term rentals, and you have some yourself. Um, just kind of go over for our audience kind of the differences in owning a long-term rental versus a short-term rental.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest advantage and the biggest thing that we see for most investors that we work with is primarily the ability to use them. And I think that that's always like probably top of the list, and that's something that we dive into when we're kind of pre-qualifying any clients that we're working with. Is, you know, how long they're going to be using it, what's the ideal property for them and their family, and then kind of take it from there. As opposed to annual rentals are great if the numbers make sense, but you know, you really don't have the ability to use them unless it goes vacant, and then you're in there probably working on the property before the next tenant moves in. But I'd say, you know, that's the biggest thing that our investors are looking at, is the ability to use it and cash flow it.
Do you have both short-term and long-term rentals?
Just being upfront with you, I've sold pretty much everything.
Wow.
Yeah. Actually, we did just buy a 3-2 on Bonita Beach. And that's our homestead. We're going to be living there full time. That could be something that we flip into a vacation rental property. Just because I think I can get 17,000 a month in season on that property. But for now, we're just living in it. And then a lot of other properties, I mean, I'm looking at the market. I'm just like, you know, it's crazy high. It's a little nerve wracking because of having so much in the dollar right now. But I think that there's going to be a lot of good deals in the future, and I just wanted to be prepared for it. So we've pretty much liquidated everything.
So you sold at the highest point of the market.
Yeah.
You know, I've done that as well with some of my rentals. I took, 8 units and sold them this year,
Nice.
and really realized some pretty sweet gains. And, you know, Steve, I don't know about you, man. What did you do with the cash? I mean, are you just kind of sitting on it? You're just going to pay pay your lumps, just go ahead and pay the tax liabilities on them when it's due?
I didn't see it being necessary to do 1031 exchanges. So we kind of take the hit, but you know, if you hold on to them long enough, you know, it's not that bad. And also, you know, our renovation costs that we put into the properties, we get back. And, you know, so it hasn't been that significant, but I just didn't want to do a 1031 exchange into a property that I'm overpaying for. You know what I mean?
That's it, man. And you know, it's funny. I just experienced that. I tried. I mean, I was thinking, you know, I have this gain. What am I going to do with it? You know, no one likes to pay taxes if they don't have to. And you hear about all these people making, kind of swapping properties to avoid the gain. And I found myself so stressed out. I was actually looking at markets that I knew nothing about. You have a very short period of time to do so. And finally, I just decided, I mean, I had a conversation with my accountant. My accountant said, look, man, why don't you just go ahead and pay the tax? And you're right. And so it's smart. I mean, that is definitely, I know a lot of people that have sold their assets, their rental assets, kind of cashed in on this hot market. And there are a lot of discussions or talks about, what comes up goes down. And, we've been in the business long enough that we've seen this happen. It's kind of like you don't really realize it. And then one day you're like, oh, well, the market's falling. And then, like we just mentioned, you see companies like Zillow that has so much data and intel. I mean, these guys are, and Melissa and I were just, my assistant, we were having this conversation this morning, listening to all these videos about Zillow. And that's not what we're talking about now, but it is a good thing to point out. A lot of people are saying, screw Zillow, they're terrible, this, that, and other. One thing that they have that I don't have is, billions of dollars in revenue and, a track record of almost 20 years of collecting data. We can't turn our nose to that. I mean, I've been to their headquarters, and man, when you look at the amount of data that they've collected from America's home buyers, the trends, all that other stuff, I think there's something to this announcement. I think there's more to the story, and may be a good time to buy. So, coming up soon. So let's kind of dive in a little bit. You touched on a very important part, the difference with long-term and short-term being the ability to use it. And I do want to talk about that because I know you're pretty savvy with what you can and cannot do as far as it comes to the IRS and stuff like that. And you've talked with your accountant. I'm sure you've had multiple conversations about, what can I do? But, for those that are looking to get in and they're looking for that market adjustment, you liked the short-term rental market. When I think of short-term rentals, I think of hotels. I've never done a Airbnb or short-term rental. So I think of a hotel. I think, Steve, about a lot of cleaning and replenishing and laundry and employees and customer service. How is owning a short-term rental different from owning a hotel other than size? And will somebody need to work really hard at making money with these short-term rentals?
Our properties, we've always had, well, not always, but for several years, we've outsourced it to a vacation rental management company to handle everything. However, we have a lot of investors that will buy, but they want to manage it themselves. And I always tell them, as long as you have a good cleaner and a good handyman, then you can manage these from afar. There's no doubt about it. And odds are you'll make more money as well, not just taking into consideration the management fees, which can range depending on markets anywhere from 12% to 30%, some as high as 50%. Even outside of that, if you're just working on your own individual property, you have a handful of them, odds are you can get more bookings because you're concentrated more on your properties as opposed to the company we use. They have well over 150 doors that they deal with, so it's not like our properties are a priority in any sense. But yeah, if you have a good handyman and a cleaner, then and obviously you probably want backups just in case. But in Southwest Florida, we have investors that want to manage it themselves, and then we just refer them our contacts, our contractors, and they do extremely well from afar.
When you're referring to the difference in management costs, that 12% to 30%, is that really when you're getting into more of the internet sites like the Airbnb? I mean, do they actually serve as the management company?
They're pretty much just booking sites. I mean, they're not really. I mean, they obviously they have the infrastructure to book through and handle communication with the guests, but I mean, they're primarily just booking sites to market the properties.
So despite having them, that 12 or 30% management fee is on top of the internet booking sites fee.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
But then a lot of that can be passed on to the guest. Obviously, they're going to have their bed taxes that they pay for, any kind of state taxes, the cleaning fees, and then booking fees as well. That can all be passed on to them. And then obviously on your end, if you hire a vacation rental company, then you're going to get hit with the management fee for just handling all of it.
So Steve, you've had long and short-term rentals, right? I mean, you didn't just have the properties that you were doing Airbnb with. You actually own long-term rentals. What did you prefer? I mean, knowing what you know now, and I know you point a lot of people to the short-term rentals, but knowing what you know now, what did you like the best?
Annual long-term rentals are good because you have consistent revenue coming in unless you have a problem tenant. So I like that, and I'll always diversify and still maintain some annual rentals. But short-term rentals I like a lot. Like we were just in Bradenton Beach, Siesta Key, exploring some of those areas. I'm looking at areas. Obviously, the real estate market is expensive, but I'm still going and I'm vacationing at these places to figure out when I'm ready to get back in and start purchasing, to find the ideal properties. Because from here where I'm at in Southwest Florida, to get up to Bradenton Beach, it's only an hour and a half drive for us. So, but it's a completely different beach, different atmosphere, kind of different world. And I love that. We were recently, we took a trip out to North Captiva. This is probably about 6 or 8 months ago. And it's only accessible by boat. And the condo that we picked up has a lift and a boat and everything. So we took a trip over there, and that I have my eyes on that place as well, because that's just an experience in itself, taking a boat to an island, and then the island is all golf carts, and you're driving golf carts on beach sand out there. So it's a beautiful spot. So I like the ability to have, me personally, short-term rentals in Florida where I can get to real easy, especially right now with the pandemic and travel. And we went to Bimini not too long ago, and it was just a hassle, and it sucks. And I think travel is going to probably get more difficult, probably get more expensive. So to have some vacation rental properties that we can have in our backyard and produce income from is the ideal situation. And ideally, I'd probably like to have at least a dozen kind of scattered throughout Florida and maybe up into Georgia or Tennessee.
That's some interesting advice. Most states, um, the people that live in the state, they travel to other states to vacation, but it's amazing. I mean, even just here in Maryland, I mean, we have beaches, we have mountains. There are lots of things that you can do, from skiing in the wintertime to boating in the summertime. So that's some pretty good advice. With travel, it probably will be more expensive. It's amazing. Even just seeing the layoffs, or the people that, in the airlines that have walked out or whatever, or lost their jobs because of whatever their, position was with the vaccine. It was amazing how much here in Maryland we saw a pickup in traffic. It was almost like instantly people were driving more. And so, I mean, I think that's some good advice. Maybe look for some vacation spots if you're going to do short-term rentals that are right in your own state. And it's going to be something that you will be able to utilize, and something you'll be able to manage if you choose to do so. And great point. What are some of and let's just kind of talk about specifically the short-term rental side of real estate. What are some of the biggest mistakes that you can say that you learned diving in with no experience, even though you have real estate experience? But when you started investing in these properties, what were some of the mistakes that you said, like, wow, this is a mistake, or this I would never do again?
For one thing, the biggest mistake I made early on was not paying the appropriate taxes for the bed tax as well as state tax to Florida. I messed it up, and then we started getting fines, and it was just honest mistake too. But if that's not taken care of, then yeah, you're dealing with government entities that want their money, and they will charge accordingly for it. Other mistakes that I see with other people, and sometimes we'll list these properties and sell them for them, is they just didn't calculate the numbers accurately. So, this is part of your due diligence when you're in contract. I mean, obviously you want to study the numbers, the income and expenses, but while you're in your due diligence period, it's important to bring in other vacation rental management companies to give pro formas, to get an idea of estimates. There's other sites like AirDNA that you can analyze and pay a small monthly fee to have a lot of data there as well. So making sure that the numbers make sense, and be conservative with the numbers. I mean, I think that if you're overly optimistic and and especially if you're taking debt in on a property and then all of a sudden you're kind of in upside down position, then it's working against you. So I think the biggest thing is the numbers, and also making sure that you're buying a property in areas on a local level that will allow short-term rental properties and that are more liberal in that sense as well. Because they're like, prime example, like in Bonita Beach or the condo I just bought, it's 30-day minimum, which sucks. I mean, if that place was, let's say, 7-day minimum, I think I could probably make 130 grand a year on that property. Wow. But I can't because it's 30-day minimum, 12 times per year. So, you're kind of guaranteed season January, February, March, April as well. But, outside of season, people don't want to spend, 30 days in Florida because it's too hot or whatever the case is. But if it was 7-day, it'd be a game changer.
So you knew that going in, though?
Yeah, I mean, this is the property we're living in, and it was an off-market deal too. I wasn't literally. I was trying to lease, and I haven't leased a property in a long time. And we were looking for annual rental, and we had one. It kind of fell apart, and then this one kind of fell in my lap, and I was like, we just started negotiating, and I got a good deal on it, so I was happy with the deal. I'm in a good equity position in today's market, so I feel good about it. But it's one of those properties that it's just, we're going to enjoy living there for sure.
You must really think a downturn's coming. I mean, you're really practicing what someone should practice if you're investing in real estate and in the business and believe that it's coming. I mean, you sold high. You are looking for the opportunity. You were thinking, hey, I'll just rent until the market goes down, and then I'm really capitalizing. You think a downturn's coming?
Yeah. I think we're going to see a lot of people's net worth kind of dissipate. I think a lot of people are going to get hurt in the stock market, real estate. I think a lot of people are going to get hurt in a lot of different asset classes. And I'm pushing people that, we talked about in the beginning in terms of capital gains. I'm like, take the hit, but let's say you don't take the hit and you're waiting it out and you're like, okay, my property for $500,000 is going to go to 600,000. What if it doesn't? And then let's say at $500,000 today, it goes down to 400,000, but you had $100,000 of equity that you could have taken a hit and paid 30 grand in taxes on it, but you didn't. And now it's worth 400,000. Then you're at zero of a net gain on that property. So I look at it like, take the hit and obviously we're not financial advisors in any sense, but that's what I'm doing. But yeah, I think, when you have our government buying, what is it, like 120 billion in mortgage-backed securities every month? I mean, and I know they're tapering off on that, but it's not healthy. There's nothing healthy about that. And there's other stuff. I just finished up a video on commercial mortgage-backed securities. Scary stuff. If anybody's in a pension right now, I would be researching what that pension is tied to. and if it's tied to commercial mortgage-backed securities, just take a look at what's going on there, where they're inflating net operating income of businesses, packaging this stuff together and selling it to pension funds and college endowments and hedge funds. And so I think that there's a lot of funny things going on out there. And I don't think we can necessarily, or my own personal opinion, trust our government or big entities or pension systems for protecting our livelihood and assets. So that's why I like to have control.
No, Steve, I don't disagree with what you're saying. What I have a tendency to do, it's kind of interesting how we forget. I mean, one time I was doing this presentation for a group of business owners. It was during the housing market crash of 2008, which 2005 it started with here in Maryland. It was headlines of the paper said the overpriced Baltimore housing market. And as a builder and developer at that time, I instantly started to see a decline. And a lot of things are hysteria. It's what we hear. I mean, look at what happened to Zillow. The news on Zillow, their stock market. I mean, their stocks crashed in 2 days. They plummet. Now, I mean, what's the definition of crash? But they went down a lot. And I think one of the things that I learned, when I was living through that downturn, as somebody in the real estate business, somebody that owned properties and was building and watched how fast it happened. Then, I was preparing this presentation for this group of business owners, and because everybody was kind of like, my gosh, what's going on? It was affecting everybody back then. The restaurants, I mean, big restaurant chains were closing down because people were just holding their money, right? And one of the things that I did was I went back to like the 1800s, and every decade or so, 10 or 15 years, there was a reason why we had a downturn, right? They called it panics back in the day, depressions, recessions. So I think that, knowing that there's so much propaganda out there and not being able to trust what you're being fed, one of the things that we could probably trust is history. We take a glimpse back and go, well, wait a minute. If since the 1800s, every 10, 15, 18 years, there was a downturn, and that has happened historically, what's not to think that it won't happen now? So, and then when you look at, like you said, we've been at market highs. So, it's a scary space to be. Talking about the government and these short-term rentals, because it's interesting. As soon as we find like a workaround, it seems like industry finds a workaround. They always catch up, right? To fees, and you're talking about taxes and things like that. When you first started an Airbnb, I mean, it was like this phenomenon. Who would think, I mean, like Uber taking down the taxi cab company? I mean, Airbnb took America by storm, the globe by storm, and really affected the hotel industry, right? I mean, why didn't they invent it? Why didn't they see this coming, right? It's like email. Why didn't the post office, the postal service, create email? We're taken by storm by these technologies. What have you seen that has changed with the government and fees and allowances or disallowances of these short-term rentals since you started?
Florida is awesome. The fees, I mean, it's still pretty fair. I mean, we have the 6% sales tax and then 5% bed tax in Florida. No state income taxes here. I mean, but I can't say that about other states and other areas. I mean, I hear from other people, and obviously like California and some other states where they're just getting hammered every which way. But even a place out by us, Fort Myers Beach, a little more strict, and they have a annual registration fee for short-term rentals, and I think it's like $250 a year. And if they crack down on that, but if you didn't pay it, it's an additional $20 or something. I mean, every area that I've dealt with in Florida so far has been pretty good about it. They haven't been that restricting.
What are some of the questions that a potential investor should be asking? I mean, should they, call the zoning? When you're looking at, like, for instance, you have neighborhoods that are around venues, and we'll talk about some of the, popular places where you could have a short-term rental. But should they be calling the zoning department for asking if this is a permitted use? I mean, is there a regulation or legislation that has happened now that could limit their, use for short-term rental?
Yeah, I would absolutely contact the zoning department, see if you can even set up a meeting, talk about the property or properties of interest, and see, get it directly from them. Don't trust real estate agents, even though we're real estate brokers. You trust but verify. A property I bought out in Fort Myers Beach, it was a duplex, and I knew I was going to do well on it, so I was buying it no matter what. And it was a house with an apartment, but it turns out after I owned it, I got clarification on it from somebody at the zoning department on Fort Myers Beach, and they said that I could not rent them independently, but I could, as an owner, live in one side and rent the other out. But I could not have two different renters at any given time. I did anyway, but yeah, I was surprised by that, and that's obviously something I disclosed when I sold the property to any prospective buyers, or the buyer that bought it was, you have to, you can't rent it independently because that's what's up with the zoning. But I was completely unaware of that. I knew it was zone duplex. I knew it was on a road that was short-term rentals, minimum 7 days, but I've never heard of something like that. And then when I was getting ready to list the property for sale, I uncovered that by contacting the zoning department. And I previously, when I was in contract, I contacted the zoning department just to make sure it was minimum 7-day rentals on it. But I didn't care. I was getting such a good deal. I was buying it no matter what. But I never asked that question, can I rent them independently? And couldn't do that. It was interesting.
That is interesting. I see that a lot with investors, and I mean, look, no offense taken about not trusting their real estate agents. I mean, ultimately, you're the one that's stuck with the, any implications as far as problems with the property later. So always verify. Absolutely. A lot of agents, they just don't know, unfortunately, when you get into these, types of rentals.
And it works both ways on that too, Todd. So we've been able to purchase properties where it was misinformation from the listing agent in the MLS. And it turns out, like, prime example, in one community, you could do minimum 30 days, but she put it in as one rental per year. And it just, so as an investor, or if, as a real estate agent working with a buyer, you can get a better deal on that if you know what you're looking for as well. And I think that it kind of works both ways. And it's an honest mistake in most cases by real estate agents, but they don't do the extra research in many cases. So it's kind of, it can go both ways, where you can get a better deal if you can recognize those things.
Steve, one of the things I love is when agents on the other side make mistakes about their listings, and especially if I'm the one doing the investing, or I have the client, just like you said. I mean, it's amazing. That's why, right, we always check. We check with zoning. We check what the zoning codes are, because how many times have you seen an agent list something residential that could be multifamily, and it's not being used as a multifamily? Or it could be a commercial, there's a higher and better use. But, one big thing, an area that I see a lot of investors make mistakes and the agent's not really catching it, or verifying it is a lot of times the listing agent will advertise it as a 2-unit dwelling. I mean, sort of like what you just experienced. Then you realize, hey, look, it really isn't a 2-unit dwelling. Somebody illegally turned it into a 2-unit dwelling, and you're buying that problem. You can't just say, well, I bought it this way, so that's why I'm using it. You actually inherit that property's faults. And if it's not legal as a 2-unit dwelling, you're going to bear the burden of either trying to make it that way, or if it can't, eliminating it.
Yeah, we actually had another investor we were working with. We were in contract on a triplex on the water, close to the beach, for 1.6 million, and they were super geeked up about it. Just excited. They flew down. We were already in contract, and we're doing some more research, and it turns out the third unit was non-conforming, meaning it was basically just done illegally, and it's technically not a triplex. And when I confronted the agent on it, she's like, yeah, it's a non-conforming area, but you're marketing it online as a triplex, and it's not. It's a duplex, and you have the bottom built out, which is not insurable either. And if the city of Bonita caught on, then they literally can make you rip out all that improvement. And it was a complete 2-bed, 2-bath kitchen, beautiful setup downstairs, but it was all illegally done. Now, with that said, a lot of people do that. A lot of even the beach homes out here, the brand new beach homes, they get CO'd, and then they'll build out that downstairs. They'll put in extra bedrooms, and then they just take that chance of it getting flooded out or whatever the case is. But again, it goes back to trust but verify. And shame on me, because I should have done the research prior to. But the age of the house, I thought that bottom unit was already grandfathered in, and it wasn't.
Yeah, and it can really cause you problems in a long-term rental world when you're renting illegally, because if the county comes in, and usually what happens is somebody complains, right? I mean, that's how, always tell people everything's okay until it isn't. And then you're not very neighborly, you piss some people off. And next thing you know, they're like, okay, no problem. Or you're not controlling your tenants, or you're slumlording and you're not taking care of the place, whatever. And, but I've had a situation, that I've seen where, the county comes in and they buy, they start fining the owner. And if you're in a lease and now you need to move these people out because there's some problems.
Yeah.
So, man, I'll tell you, consult good real estate advice, especially people like Steve and myself. I mean, we've been through it. We can point you in the right direction. And by the way, guys, all of Steve's information is in the show notes. Reach out to him. He runs an amazing YouTube channel where he does a lot of videos educating people for free, just giving them good advice. So, that's kind of the community that we have here on platforms like YouTube and podcasts and things like that. And we also appreciate your comments and your likes and your subscribes, follows, and all that good stuff. So if you are liking your content, we appreciate you letting the content that we're producing. We appreciate you letting us know. So Steve, let's kind of talk about, so we buy this short-term rental, we dive in. What are some of the ways that investors can make their places better than others? So, there a lot of times, let's say they are on sites like Airbnb. What makes people attracted to one property versus the next?
Number one is you got to have good photos and videos if you can do that as well. Photos are everything, because how many times have you booked a hotel? Did you go to the hotel prior to and look at the room? Odds are you didn't. You look at the photos and you show up and you got what you got. So make sure your photos are good. Furnishings, furnishings you can get cheap furniture these days. You kind of want to have the furniture to hold up. But I think go into any higher end hotel, maybe not even higher end, but they have good linens, they have white bedspreads, they have nice pillows. you got to make sure that the property is comfortable and has everything that the guest needs to enjoy things. And if you can do something extra, like we try to have bicycles for our properties, and if we have the right properties, paddle boards or kayaks, anything additional that they're not anticipating or expecting is good, because all those things result in good reviews, and good reviews equate to more money because people are going to read those reviews. They're going to book that property more often than not. So, anything you can do to make sure that the property is how you would want it to be, do those things. And, some people are like, I don't want to have white sheets and linens because they get dirty. Yeah. I mean, build that into your cost to replace them every so often. And we do that, and it pays off, because again, if you're tripping over nickels to pick up dollars, then it works against you, so you provide a better experience, provide better things, and you're going to make more money, and then you can reinvest that money into the things that get damaged or dirty or whatever the case is. So, and make sure that the properties are clean. I think cleanliness is a big thing, and I've done several videos on my channel about this as well. Just going through a lot, like even, I give a story about the time we rented a townhome in Key West, and I open up the kitchen cupboards, and there's cups falling out, because everybody's on Duval Street, and they have all these cups and they leave them in the property. So, which is cool, but there was no organization. There was just like so many cups and just random plates. And, so you have to reorganize, and, you have to get rid of stuff that people leave there that, just clutters the place up. So, yeah, I mean, a combination of all that will help with better reviews and make more money.
I'm sure there's some good things that vacationers like. You just mentioned what people leave behind. What do you do when they leave behind like booze or beer and things like that? I mean, you tell the cleaning company that you drink it. You tell the cleaning company like put those aside for you, or do you say leave them in there, or do you have them get rid of them?
Our cleaners here locally, they take all that stuff, and we encourage it. And, a lot of people tip the cleaners as well. So we're just like, anything that they leave, and we know our cleaners really well too. It's actually, my fiance's, mother owns a cleaning company here locally, and she tells us all the stuff that they leave behind, and they're.
So you do drink it. It comes back to you. It comes to the house.
Right. Sometimes it does, and yeah, for sure. If it's unopened, then we'll take advantage of it.
So just to touch on a couple of things, you had mentioned furniture, and I just started flipping again, and got back into it. I haven't flipped a house in 2 years, and just bought a flip, and questioning whether it was the right time to do so. As we just discussed, we're seeing the comps soften even in the last 40 days that I've owned it. And we're just about ready to put it on the market. But anyway, I went out to buy some furniture because we're going to stage it. I used to, when I flipped regularly, I staged the houses myself. Why spend $3,000-$4,000 on a staging company when you could easily pick that up if you're going to be in the business of doing it and you have a place to store it, hopefully in the not too long, but in the actual flips. But we had a hard time finding furniture, with the supply shortages that are out there right now. It was difficult. So, we went to a furniture store, we shopped online, but when you say you want it to last, are there any tips with buying the furniture? I mean, obviously it's getting used, right? They're not at home. They're not necessarily treating it the way they would their furniture at home. They're spilling things on it. They're jumping on it. Maybe they have, a lot of people sitting on it. What's some of the advice you've learned from that? Should you go high end? Should you go low end and just plan on replacing it often? I mean, what's the recommendation?
Like couches, I think they're used a lot, obviously. And prime example, like we just picked up a couch from City Furniture, and obviously I negotiate for a living, so I'm like, give us the family discount here. And he couldn't do anything because there's such a demand, right? And he's like, but I can do the extended warranty, da da da. And I was like, you're gonna waive that, right? And he's like, well, it's $180. I can't do that. I was like, see what you can do. Anyway, we got it for $50. It's a 3-year warranty. If there's a hole, a stain, or whatever, they come in, and if they can't fix it, they'll actually replace it. So I was like, that's worth it. But every year we will, at least every year, we'll get Stanley Steamer to come in and do the couches, do anything that's fabric. We don't have much carpet in Florida anyway, but usually any kind of cushions and that kind of stuff, we'll do that at least once a year. And then other things like bed frames, I pay more attention to, because a lot of it's just the particle board that they used for the frame on, and they don't last worth of shit. And people use the beds in other ways than just sleeping too.
I get it.
So we will spend a little bit more money on better bed frames that are going to hold up, because you don't want to be replacing bed frames every so often. And then mattresses, same thing. We'll get them cleaned. And but yeah, we'll shop around and try to get the best deal, but as good quality as possible, but without breaking the bank. And we don't spend, we don't go high end in any sense. I think for vacation rental property, that's just insane, because not everybody's going to treat the place like you'd treat it. So you kind of want middle of the road, basically, in my opinion.
But you think the sheets and things like that, would you say go luxury? I mean, from what
yeah.
I mean, that's kind of like, when people are sleeping, I mean, they like that luxury feel.
Our office is located in the Bonita Beach and Tennis Club across the street from the beach. And we don't manage these properties, but because we have an office right there, we have people that will come into our office thinking that we're managing the property. And they're like, I had just a horrible night's sleep. This bed sucks and this and that. And we're like, you got to contact the owner or whoever you book through. But that's a huge complaint that we hear a lot, is the quality of their sleep. So we definitely buy, and it's not crazy money, but better mattresses. If the mattress is a little hard, we'll put the topper on it, the memory foam topper. But I think a good night's sleep is important for people on vacation. And it's important for me. If I go to a place and it's a crap bed, I'm not, and I'm not prissy in any sense, but years of doing renovations on properties, it finally got to me, and I don't have the best back in the world. And so if the bed's crap, then I'm not too happy. So
makes for a miserable stay.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, really. What's your opinion on allowing pets?
I'm not a fan. I mean, I don't, on any of our properties or past properties, we wouldn't allow it, because I like pets, but pets are like kids, right? It's like, and then you got the parent, and the parent. Not all parents, train their kids or their pets the same way as other parents. So you might have, a parent with a little dipshit kid, and he's running around being an a-hole to all these people, and you're like, man, that's a bad kid, but it's a result of the parent in most cases, right? It's the same thing with pets. Like, you get somebody with a pet and they're pissing on the side of the couch, and again, a lot of people have really good pets and kids, but if they're not trained, then you're going to have, the smell of dog urine on your couch and not even know about it until the next guest checks in some cases, and then they smell it, and it's not good. So it's more wear and tear on your property, and not all cleaners are going to catch it. And then, you know, I'm not a fan.
And it's something about, I mean, I don't really like pets in any rentals, honestly, unless it's a service pet, and uh, but like you said, I mean that you have a bad dog, or I mean, I don't think people would travel with their cats. Maybe they do, but I know certainly dogs are probably the most popular pet that they travel with. And then the dog has an accident because they stayed out too long or they did something or whatever. And then, like you said, I mean, then the next pet comes along. No matter how well you clean it, their scent is way better than ours. And the next thing you know, then their dog is marking that spot. Or I mean, look, when you let your dog outside, what does it do? It goes over, finds where another dog peed, and there it is, right? They're kind of marking their spot. So I agree with you on that, though. I do know people that have pets and they're really great owners, but are you willing to take that risk, especially when it comes to this is your investment? And so anyway, what are some of the other so you kind of gave the amenities that you must have, and you want it to be like their home. You mentioned things like cups, and I'm sure you stock it full of housewares, silverware, things like that. But are there rules of thumb that you kind of guide by? How many bedrooms? Are there really limits to if you have a 2-bedroom? I mean, are there any kind of limitations on how many people can stay there, or just kind of give us your ideals, specific views? Steve, do you find that the best rentals are around convention centers or venues? The beach, obviously, oceanfront.
I
What's your
think,
experience?
yeah, I think obviously we're on the beach, so we do concentrate more on beach properties. But I think, generally speaking, in any area, it's all about the experience. So what kind of experience are you providing that guest? And I think that's what's going to separate you from the competition as well. Like, even, and I'm not doing it right now, but I plan on buying a property inland in Bonita Springs. I'm going to start with one, and I'm thinking about doing like a container home, but it's on 1.25 acres, and it's just going to be a tiny home. And I got the guys that can build this thing out, and we can legally have it and fix it to the pad and everything. But that's going to be on acreage. You can still drive to the beach, 15-minute drive to the beach, if that. But we'll have a fire pit out there. We'll have bicycles to cruise around the area. You're kind of close to the beach, but you're still kind of wilderness in a sense. So I could, I think, again, it's all about the experience and what kind of, especially Airbnb. Airbnb is more for people looking for adventure or experiences. And we plan on doing some other trips. I've been looking in the Keys, like the Upper Keys, where you can rent a yacht. It moors at the actual dock, and you can stay on the yacht for a day, a night, 3 nights, whatever, 10 nights. So but that's a cool experience. So we want to bring the kids there and just post up on a yacht, and some of them are really nice too. So again, I think it's all about the experience. Beach properties, obviously, if you can walk on over to the beach, or it's a simple bike ride to the beach. If it's a bike ride to the beach, can you provide those bicycles? If you're on the water, can you provide the kayaks, the paddle boards? It doesn't cost much. I mean, I picked up used paddle boards for a couple $100 each from a guy that rents paddle boards. So just ask your question. If you were going to stay there, what would you want to do? And then other things, if you can walk to a downtown area, you can walk to a bar or a restaurant, have that kind of those amenities. Because a lot of times people fly in, they'll take an Uber from the airport to the property, and then they don't want to mess with driving around or Ubering around. So is there places that they can walk to? And so I take a lot of those things into consideration when looking at properties. The one we were just at in Bradenton, across the street from the beach, and literally like 2 blocks over from this like little downtown area and the pier, awesome seafood restaurants and bars and shops and live music and all that kind of stuff. So I really got my eye on that area there too, so just again, the experience, and try it before you buy. I've done a couple videos on this, like go and experience it and try it out. And if it sucks, then don't invest there, because other people are going to think that it sucks too, probably,
Yeah, that's good advice. I have you're talking about experience, talking about the yacht. So I have a buddy of mine that this past summer he rented an Airbnb, and he took his wife and kids, and the kids are older, but they did, fly in and to stay with them, and they had this boat. So he said that he started the boat up or tried to start the boat, and he had to call the owner of the unit to say, or the manager to say, like, how do I start this boat? And he's like, oh yeah, well, it could be a little, tricky, whatever. So he finally gets this boat started. So they go out in the water, and so he's starting to, fishing and whatever, and it's time to come back in. He cannot get this boat started. It broke down. They actually had to call somebody to come and tow it. So needless to say, it wasn't a very fun experience with that. And but it's funny because you mentioned reviews. Then he actually went back and started looking through the reviews, and a lot of the reviews were, the boat's a piece of junk, don't use it, and these different things. And of course, his kids brought that to his attention, and were like, hey, by the way, did you see this review? When he booked it, he thought he was, doing the right thing. Talk a little bit about the condos and HOAs, because a lot of these places do have regulations. What have you seen change with those, other than, like the time? Like some have a minimum of 30 days or 7 days or what have you. But do you see where they're eliminating these short-term rentals altogether? And if they are, what does that mean for somebody that bought it before they made this rule?
That's a great question. I think we're experiencing that a little bit right now in Daytona Beach. I was looking at that area pretty hard, and the more I talked to agents out there, the more it sounded like they were cracking down on the amount of short-term rentals directly on the beach there. And I think a lot of people just got screwed. I think people bought properties in those condo complexes and now can no longer do one night minimum. And I think that was outside of the local associations. I think that was on a more of a local legislature for the local area. So that it's a good question too, because I always run the numbers both as an annual rental and a vacation rental, and if they both don't line up, then I probably won't make the purchase, because I want to make sure that I'm going to be able to cash flow it in both scenarios.
Let's talk about the business side of things. You had mentioned, one of the benefits being that, hey, you have this short-term rental, make it a place that you want to vacation. Is there anything that you can share? I mean, what have your accountants taught you about that? What is there anything that you can, again, I know you're not an accountant, but is there anything, advice that you can give of what you've learned as far as what they can and cannot do?
In terms of using the property?
Yes, and writing it off.
I don't know. I mean, I give all my info to the accountant, and she does what she does, and I really when you're investing in real estate and you have passive income, it's like one of the least taxed, if you have a good accountant anyway, the least taxed income that you could receive. In many cases, you virtually pay almost nothing because of depreciation and everything else. And again, I'm not an accountant, so talk to your accountant. But when I do, like for example, that trip to Bradenton, yeah, we're going for pleasure, but I'm writing off some of that trip because it's business related. I'm out there researching real estate. I'm talking to management. I'm talking to agents out there. I'm staying in the places where I would potentially invest as well. And then properties that we secure and own. I'm still, if we're staying there, I'm still writing off any kind of, when we're traveling to those locations or whatever, I'm still writing stuff off. So I just give that to my accountant and she handles it. So honestly, I haven't really had too many big discussions with her about it, just because she's good. I mean, and she does everything by the book, but I don't pay a whole lot in taxes when it comes to income property.
Yeah, so there you go, guys. That's some good advice. Make sure, I mean, if you're renting properties, you're self-employed, you may have a job doing something else where your paycheck comes from, but definitely get some good tax advice. Yeah, Steve, wow, a lot of great information, man.
Appreciate it, man.
Anything we didn't cover? Any advice, last minute words of wisdom?
I think if people are sitting on the sidelines right now in terms of real estate investing, that's cool. Continue to stack up some money, because I think that there's going to be really good opportunities in the future. Maybe not right now. I know people are frustrated. They're running numbers and they're like, it just doesn't make sense right now. But I think that the tides always turn, and like you were saying, look back in history. Everything is in a cycle, so it just depends on if it's going up, flattened out, going down. We're always in a cycle of some sort in real estate. So I'd say be patient on the properties you're looking at, and the right deal will come along. But continue to explore areas. Like I was saying, we're still vacationing at different areas of concentration of where we probably want to invest in. So continue to go to those areas and check them out, because it's it's part of the recon and the due diligence period.
Well, we really appreciate your time.
Appreciate you, Todd, man. When are you coming down to Florida?
Hopefully soon. When the first snowflake happens. I start seeing snowfall out of the sky, man, I'm going to come and see you.
Let us know, man. We can line you up with our guy, our vacation rental guy, and see if we can lock you into something down here to come and explore Southwest Florida and meet up.
Awesome, man. Definitely. Well, guys, we appreciate you watching, and reach out to Steve. He would love to hear from you, and we appreciate you giving us your Tuesday nights. And if you need anything from us, drop us some comments. And until next week, we'll see you soon.